Festering Dreams, cinematic representation of Mumbai Underworld. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? This famous poem by Langston Hughes about the black underdogs in Harlem, America, is as much relevant to the tan slumdogs in Mumbai, India. Mumbai, a city of dreams, attracts millions of people. Like a femme fatale enchantress, it seduces its lovers into an everlasting quest for money, power, success, and fame. While a fortunate few like Shah Rukh Khan succeed to touch the moon, majority of others end up chasing the mirage. Some of these wanderers are so much ensnared by their dream that they are ready to go to any extreme to realize it. But regrettably, this craziness leads them not to the heaven but to the underworld where all the dreams fester and finally explode. Interestingly, this catastrophe, when captured on the silver screen, has enthralled the audiences for decades and produced many blockbuster Bollywood films ranging from Janjeer to Mardani. These cinematic representations of Mumbai underworld are indeed the chronotopes of festering dreams of frustrated youth of the city. Using the heterotopia of films, they expose the illusion of Mumbai as a city of dreams and instead reveal the decadent, corrupt, violent, and despairing image of the city that emerges from the coalescence of a world of criminals and police forces. A decadent urban atmosphere, dark, gloomy, tense, and frightening. The films depicting the Mumbai underworld can be treated as a separate genre marked by brutal realism, hyper-masculinity, and violence as a form of entertainment. Its emergence in 1970s corresponds with the growing socio-economic disillusionment and resultant political upheaval in the country as the romanticism and idealism of first-generation post-independence Indians was challenged by the second generation who continued to face corruption, poverty, and inequality in all walks of the life. The restructuring of economy with a shift in focus from rural agriculture to urban industries had been forcing many people to migrate to the cities. However, the urban economy too was undergoing a gradual shift from labor-intensive production industry to technology-intensive service industry. It threatened the blue-collar workers with unemployment and further marginalized them. So, 1970s onwards, the disappointed urban youth could easily be attracted towards crime for the sake of money. This frustration and anger experienced by the urban youth found its most pertinent expression in the angry young man image of Amitabh Bachchan. His character, Vijay in Diwar, charts the journey of rural poor to urban underworld via failed attempt to overcome poverty through the honest labor. By contrast, Vijay in Dawn succeeds in preserving the integrity and goodness of a common man even when he is unwittingly caught in the tussle between underworld and police. His double ego, The Don in the title represents the all-powerful mafia Don who boasts डॉन को पकड़ना मुश्किल ही नहीं नामुमकिन है. Unlike दीवार, it glamorizes the role of Don. The parallel cinema of 1980s was more brutal in its treatment of helpless victims at the hands of organized criminals. To quote Hockimer and Adorno, the enjoyment of the violence done to the film character turns into violence against the spectator. Distraction becomes exertion. In Artha Satya, the sincere police inspector Anand Velankar becomes vulnerable while dealing with the villain Rama Shetty. Salam Bombay offers the bird's eye view of various crimes and criminals like prostitutes, drug addicts, pickpockets, etc. from the perspective of young street children Krishna and Manju. In late 1990s, Satya once again revived the popularity of Mumbai Underworld genre, followed by Vastav, which is loosely based on the life of Chota Rajan. Chandni Bar focuses on the plight of bar dancers who are easy prey to prostitution, while Maqbool adapts Shakespeare's classic Macbeth to the contemporary crime story. Ab Tak Chhappin is inspired by Daya Nayak, an encounter specialist of Mumbai Police. Dawn, featuring Shah Rukh Khan, is a remake of Amitabh Bachchan's Dawn, but with a twist at the end. Black Friday, based on non-fiction book by the same name by crime reporter Hussain Zaidi, recreates the conspiracy of 1993 Mumbai bomb blast on silver screen. Similarly, Shootout at Lokhandwala 2 shoots the real-life encounter of Maya Dolas and 6 other goons by Mumbai Police and ATS in 1991. The crazy maze of Mumbai crime consisting of begging, pickpocketing, human trafficking, gambling, betting, and gunfighting has mesmerized even the Hollywood and created a history with 8 Academy Awards for Slumdog Millionaire. The demise of Haji Mastan and the corresponding rise of Daud Ibrahim as the king of Mumbai Underworld form the main plot of Once Upon a Time in Mumbai. Henceforth, Mumbai's underworld no longer remained limited to its geographical boundaries but transcended even the national boundaries, spanning from Dongri to Dubai and from Baikula to Bangkok. Agnipath once again depicts the epic feat of its tragic hero who avenges the murder of his idealistic father by a formidable criminal. The hypermasculine genre of Mumbai Underworld films expands its gender horizons with Mardani and Hasina Parkar, the former focusing on a female cop and later on a female don, who, for a change, give up the traditional roles of vulnerable women and appropriate the masculine positions of power. This brief survey of major Mumbai Underworld films brings to light their certain characteristic features such as exploration of various types of crimes and criminals ranging from petty pickpockets to the terrorist attacks. Use of stereotypical characters like oppressed common man, vulnerable woman, frustrated youth, influential criminal, good cop, bad cop, etc. Repeated recasting of popular themes like fate, struggle of good against evil, and revenge in various permutations and combinations. Realistic style of presentation, whereby the familiar experience of the moviegoer who perceives the street outside as a continuation of the film he has just left because the film seeks to reproduce the world of everyday perception has become the guideline of production. The more densely and completely its techniques duplicate empirical objects, the more easily it creates the illusion that the world outside is a seamless extension of the one which has been revealed in the cinema. Violence as a main component of entertainment, justifying Adorno's comment on escape mechanism of film entertainment. Amusement always means putting things out of mind, forgetting suffering even when it is on display. At its root is powerlessness. It is indeed escape, but not, as it claims, escape from bad reality, but from last thought of resisting that reality. Spatial exploration of the city through the chronotopes of mission, quest, and investigation, which informs the cognitive horizon of readers' expectations. Use of crime films as heterotopia, which has the power of juxtaposing in a single real place different spaces and locations that are incompatible with each other. The genre of Mumbai Underworld films functions as a cartographic delineation of cities' festering dreams, taking the audience through Mumbai's crowded streets, narrow lanes, cheap restaurants and bars, deserted factory compounds, overpopulated slums and stinking gutters. It juxtaposes, interposes, and thereby exposes the glamorous image of city Photoshop in the form of posh corporate offices and luxurious apartments. Parallel to police stations and jails as the fixed locales of interaction between cops and criminals, run various public and private transport vehicles such as bikes, cars, buses, and trains, creating chaos on the streets. The speedy camera movements tracking down the racing game of chore police, along with the frequent flashbacks and montages which glimpse through the inner space of the characters, bring the whole drama of chase alive on the screen. The intrinsic connectedness of time and space, termed as chronotope by Mikhail Bakhtin, whereby time as it were thickens, takes on flesh, becomes artistically visible. Likewise, space becomes charged and responsive to the movements of time, plot, and history, is revealed either through the motto of mission, quest, or through investigation. For instance, the criminal heroes of Diwar, Satya, Vastav, Shootout at Lokhandwala, and Once Upon a Time in Mumbai are driven by the quest for power, and that of Agnipath by the quest for revenge. These quests take them through various space-times which lead them first to a brief success followed by ultimate failure in the form of death. The melodramatic moral undertone of the genre assumes police encounters and death of criminals in them as both inevitable and necessary. In fact, elimination of criminals becomes the quest of the police heroes. Though the investigation of crime is a part of routine police work, the protagonists of Ardha Satya, Ab Tak Chappan, Black Friday, and Margani look upon their work as a mission intermingled with an element of adventure in it. Indeed, Marc Brossio and Pierre Martin Lee Bell regard Chronotope of Investigation as a variant of Bakhtin's Chronotope of Adventure. It is a character-driven, time-space centered on the protagonist, the inspector, and his movements across the city in pursuit of a criminal. The narrative of the protagonist's many movements map out the concrete geography of the investigation. They further state two distinct yet interrelated temporalities define the chronotope of investigation. Yet, unknown history of crime itself and the history of investigation through which it is gradually reconstituted. The reader shares the narrator's incomplete knowledge regarding the details of the crime, the city, and the outside world in general. This form of subjective realism, according to which the text communicates only the narrator's own awareness of extra-textual reality, shows how the specificities of time and space are mutually constituted. Individual biographical time, centered on the dominant activity of protagonist, the investigation, must have a corresponding speciality defined by his everyday practices. Time is like a taut string teleographically oriented towards a predictable ending, the conclusion of the investigation. It is the time of suspense from discovery to resolution. In reality, the suspense of discovery to resolution may span temporally from a few hours to several years and spatially from a single location to the entire world. But the virtuality of films compresses this vast space-time in a brief time span of 2 to 3 hours and a single location of a very curious rectangular hall at the back of which a three-dimensional space is projected onto a two-dimensional screen. In a cinema hall, all the audiences simultaneously experience the same selective reality, virtuality, which is lived by the characters on the screen. These characters include criminals, informants, police, and common people who have varying degrees of access to and control over the flow of information regarding crime. Navigating through the diverse physical and cyber networks of divergent groups of people, information reaches the audience who are caught in the web of hermeneutics. The multiple overlapping dimensions of so-called reality revealed through the conflicting perspectives of various characters at differing points in space-time often lead to some sort of plot twist which force the audiences to rethink their initial assumptions. For instance, the remake of Dawn, in the final scene, it is disclosed that Dawn is alive and pretending to be Vijay all the while. So, those who watch the film keeping in mind original Dawn and with the intention of applauding the victory of a common man over the Dawn are appalled by the realization that Dawn को पकड़ना मुश्किल ही नहीं नामुमकिन है. Such a final twist foregrounds the fictionality of both the films. It also exposes the contingency of assumed realistic genre as well as the so-called reality itself. Indeed, destabilization of certainties is the hallmark of postmodern reality. Thus, as a true heterotopia, Mumbai Underworld films performed the task of creating a space of illusion that reveals how all the real space is more illusory, all the locations within which life is fragmented. They represent, challenge, and overturn the crime world in the city. Holding up a mirror to the life and death of criminals, they show and thereby forewarn as to why the dreams of city youth fester and instead foster a better understanding of life among the same youth.